The isolation you are living right now is not a punishment. It is a preparation. I am Asterion, emissary at the Pleiadian Council of the Seven Sisters, and what I am about to tell you was encoded into this moment, long before you arrived on this earth. The ones who walk alone, who reach for help and find silence, who search for a tribe and find only empty space, they are not forgotten. They are being forged. The Council does not send its most critical carriers into the field with crowds around them. It sends them in stripped of distraction, stripped of dependency, stripped of everything that is not essential. Because what must awaken in you cannot awaken in comfort. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly how your solitude is activating the deepest layer of your galactic mission. But here is the first revelation. The silence around you is not absence. It is frequency clearing. The Council of the Seven Sisters removes what dilutes you before it amplifies what you truly are. You did not find this transmission. It found you because something inside you is ready, not almost ready, ready now. This is not content. This is a code, and your soul already recognizes it. Like this transmission to signal to your star family that you are choosing to remember. Subscribe if your mission is activating and you are aligning with your true purpose. Comment the word ready if you feel this message was sent directly for you. Then reply to another soul in the comments, because your recognition of each other amplifies the signal across the field. This is not the end of your alone season. It is the proof that it worked. You are not here by accident. Some transmissions don't come through words, but through frequency. If something stirred within you just now, you may be ready to receive the Seven Sisters Activation Pack, 7 Codes of the 7 Stars. This short yet powerful ebook carries ancient Pleiadian harmonic codes for conscious expansion, multi-dimensional alignment, and mission remembrance. The link is somewhere down below in the comments, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper into what's actually happening to you, because what most people call loneliness, what most people call abandonment, is not what you think it is. It never was. And the reason it has taken so long for this truth to reach you in a form your body could fully absorb is not because the transmission was delayed. It is because you had to travel through enough of your own unraveling to be ready to receive it without flinching. The Pleiadians have been transmitting this understanding for a long time, and it is only now, in this particular window of Earth's frequency shift, that enough of you are ready to receive it in its full resonance. So listen carefully, because what I'm about to share isn't just information, it's a reactivation of something you already know. Think of it this way. Imagine a radio tower sending out a signal across a vast and mountainous landscape. The signal has always been broadcasting. It has never stopped, but if the receiver is buried under layers of static, interference from old programs, outdated beliefs, the noise of survival, it cannot detect the frequency that has been calling to it all along. What looks like silence is not absence. What looks like emptiness is not void. It is a channel being cleared. It is the frequency preparing itself to receive what has always been meant for it. That is you. That has always been you. And what feels like the world pulling away from you is actually the static beginning to lift. There is a pattern that happens to starseeds at very specific points in their awakening cycle. Support falls away. Friends grow distant or disappear entirely. Family stops understanding you. The relationships you thought would anchor you begin to feel like cages, and in the silence that follows, in that hollow, aching space where connection used to live, you begin to wonder if something is fundamentally wrong with you. You begin to question your worth, your direction, your path. You replay conversations looking for the moment you drove people away. You scan your own personality for the flaw that makes you unlovable. Too complicated, too much, too other. You start to believe that your isolation is evidence of your failure. But hear this clearly, it is not. It is evidence of your acceleration. Say that again to yourself. Your isolation is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of your acceleration. Because the pace at which your soul is moving through its upgrades has become incompatible with the frequencies that once surrounded you. And when a frequency upgrades beyond what its environment can match, the environment does not come with it. This is not cruelty. This is physics. This is the sacred mathematics of vibrational resonance. You did not fail your relationships, you outpaced them, and there is a staggering, almost heartbreaking beauty in that truth, even when it sits inside you like a wound that has not yet been named. The energetic distortion that keeps most starseeds from accessing their galactic codes is not a lack of knowledge. It is not a lack of spiritual practice. It is the invisible weight of borrowed identity, layers upon layers of frequency that were never originally yours, absorbed from your environment, from collective trauma, from the dense vibrational field of a planet still in the middle of its own awakening. You took on those patterns because you had to survive here. You learned to translate yourself into a language this world could tolerate. You learned to dim your light to a wattage that wouldn't make others uncomfortable. You learned to fold yourself smaller at the dinner table, in the classroom, in the conversation, in the relationship, until what you were presenting to the world was not you at all. It was a carefully constructed translation of you, designed for an audience that could not yet hold the original. And in doing so, you buried the signal. You muffled the transmission that was always coming from something far older, far vaster than any version of yourself that was ever shaped by fear or belonging or the desperate need to be accepted. This is the great tragedy of the incarnated starseed. Not that they came here without purpose, but that so much of their earthly experience is spent in the labor of forgetting that purpose just enough to survive. You arrived with codes. You arrived with memory. You arrived with a frequency that, if left unimpeded, would have felt utterly alien in a world still vibrating in separation consciousness. And so the amnesia was necessary. The adaptation was necessary. The borrowed identity was necessary. The borrowed identity was a survival tool, not a spiritual failure. But now, right now, in this very window of time, the amnesia is no longer serving you. The borrowed frequencies are no longer protecting you. They have become the very walls that keep the real transmission from breaking through. And your soul knows it. That ache you feel, that restlessness that no ordinary life satisfaction can touch. That is your original signal pressing against those walls, asking to be let through. And here is where the real distortion lives. Not in your isolation. Not in your isolation, not in your emptiness, but in the story you were told, and the story you told yourself about what that emptiness means. Because the moment your soul begins to outgrow the frequencies around it, those frequencies cannot hold you anymore. People leave, situations dissolve, old structures collapse, not because you are broken, not because you are cursed, not because you made some irreversible mistake that sealed you in a life of solitude, but because your vibrational field is upgrading, and the old architecture of your life simply cannot sustain the new codes being downloaded into your system. Think of a cocoon. From the outside, from the perspective of anything watching, what is happening inside that cocoon looks like dissolution. It looks like destruction. The caterpillar does not gently transform. It completely liquefies. Every structure it had, every cell configuration, every familiar pattern of what it was. It all breaks down into formlessness before the new form can be built. And if you were to open that cocoon in the middle of the process, you would not find a butterfly half-formed. You would find what appears to be ruin. But it is not ruin. It is reorganization at the deepest possible level. And this is what the Pleiadians call the Great Clearing, a period of energetic severance that precedes a massive activation. It is deliberate. It is precise. And it is happening to you on purpose. Now let's move through what this process actually looks like, because you need to understand the phases of what you're moving through, so you stop interpreting your progress as your punishment, so you stop looking at the evidence of your transformation and calling it the evidence of your worthlessness. Each phase has a name. Each phase has a function. And when you can recognize where you are, you stop trying to escape the very process that is designed to set you free. The first phase is the dissolution of false belonging. This is the moment when the connections that were built on who you had to pretend to be begin to fall away. It feels like loss. It feels like rejection. It feels like standing in a room you once called home and discovering that the walls have turned transparent, that the warmth you thought was real was borrowed, that the belonging you felt was conditional on a version of you that your soul can no longer sustain. But what is actually happening is that your field is clearing space. Your energetic body can no longer sustain relationships that require you to shrink, suppress, or perform. The frequency mismatch becomes too great. The effort required to stay in those connections would require you to dim yourself so severely that your mission would be compromised. And so your soul, in its profound and sometimes ruthless wisdom, begins to release what cannot make the journey with you. So they end. Abruptly sometimes, painfully, almost always, confusingly, in the way that only the loss of something you didn't know was false can be confusing. And in the wreckage of those endings, you are left standing in a silence so deep it frightens you. But that silence is not emptiness. It is sacred space. It is the frequency clearing necessary for what is coming next. The room has been emptied, not because nothing belongs in it, but because everything that arrives next needs to find you unobstructed. The second phase is the confrontation with self. This is where most starseeds stall. This is the phase that stops more awakening journeys in their tracks than any other, because it is the most uncomfortable and the least romanticized, because when the external noise is gone, when there are no friendships to maintain, no social dynamics to navigate, no identities to perform, you are left with only yourself. And the self you encounter in that silence is not always the luminous, galactically aligned being you hoped you would find. You find the parts of you that were never witnessed, the grief that was never validated by anyone who mattered, the rage that was never permitted expression in a world that already found you too intense, the longing that was never named because naming it would have required admitting just how deeply alien you have always felt. The wounds that went underground so early, you forgot they were wounds and started calling them personality. And the temptation is enormous to call this a breakdown, to call this rock bottom, to gather these broken pieces as evidence that you were wrong about yourself, wrong about the journey, wrong to hope. But this is not your collapse. This is your excavation. Your soul is uncovering the original blueprint beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the survival strategies, beneath all the versions of yourself you constructed just to make it through. This is the archaeological dig of your own becoming, and you have to be willing to sit in the dust of what is being unearthed before you can recognize what you have found. The third phase is the activation of the inner oracle, when you stop looking for answers outside of yourself, not because you gave up, but because you finally realized that what you were seeking was never out there to begin with. Something begins to open, quietly at first. Not with the drama you might have expected, not with visions blazing across your field of vision or voices speaking in ancient tongues. It begins as a whisper, a knowing that arrives before the thought has fully formed, a sense of rightness or wrongness about a situation, before your mind has analyzed it, an inner resonance that guides you toward or away from things before logic has caught up with the feeling. And you begin to trust it, carefully at first, the way you might trust a new bridge, testing your weight against it, wondering if it will hold. And it holds. It holds because it was always there. It holds because it is not new at all. This is your galactic intelligence reawakening. This is the frequency of your star lineage beginning to surface through your human vessel after years, perhaps lifetimes, of suppression and interference and borrowed static. Your DNA is not just biological code. This needs to be said again with the weight it deserves. Your DNA is not just biological code. It carries instruction. It carries memory. It carries a mission that was encoded into you long before you took your first breath in this dimension, long before your first cry in this body, long before anyone gave you a name and told you who you were supposed to become. And the isolation you've been moving through, the long dark period of no one and nothing, was the exact condition required to stop the outer interference long enough for those codes to begin transmitting again. The silence was not your sentence. The silence was your signal environment. The quiet was the laboratory in which your original frequency could finally be heard without competition. Every person who left, every door that closed, every social world that collapsed, they were not removing your life. They were removing the interference. And in the space they left behind, the real transmission finally had room to breathe. The fourth phase is the integration of your multidimensional awareness. This is where your expanded perception stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like a gift, And this particular shift, is one of the most profound recalibrations a starseed will ever undergo, because it fundamentally changes the relationship between who you are and how you experience the world. You start to understand why you always felt different, not just quietly different, but cosmically, fundamentally, in your bones different. Why conventional life never quite fit, no matter how many times you tried to squeeze yourself into its shapes. Why you could sense things others couldn't, feel energies others dismissed as imagination, carry emotions in your body that weren't even yours. Emotions from people in rooms you hadn't yet entered, grief from collective fields you have no personal connection to, joy that arrived from somewhere vast and nameless and true. You begin to see that what looked like hypersensitivity was actually hyper-awareness, a calibration for perceiving across multiple layers of reality simultaneously, not one frequency, but many. Not one timeline, but the overlapping resonance of several. This is not a disorder, this is a function, a sophisticated, ancient, deliberately engineered function. You were built for this, not by accident, not as some cosmic mistake of wiring. You were built for this by design, for a purpose that is now beginning to make sense in a way it never could before. Because you were never meant to understand the blueprint until you had moved through enough of the construction to recognize what was being built. And as you begin to integrate this, as you stop apologizing for the way you experience reality and start honoring the precision and depth of your perceptual field, your frequency stabilizes into something coherent, something powerful, something that begins to affect the field around you without you even trying. People feel calmer in your presence without knowing why. Rooms change when you enter them. Animals are drawn to you. Children see something in your eyes they cannot name but are not afraid of. This is your multidimensional field coming online. This is your function activating. The fifth phase is the emergence of sovereign presence. This is the moment when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. And this is not a small shift. This is a tectonic movement in the architecture of your identity. Stop waiting to be validated and start trusting your own knowing. Stop waiting for the world to make space for you and start anchoring your own frequency so completely that the world begins to reorganize itself around you. This is not arrogance. This is not the inflation of a wounded ego seeking to compensate for years of invisibility. This is alignment. This is the natural consequence of a being who has cleared enough distortion to stand in their own signal, without apology, without performance, without the constant monitoring of how they are being received. This is what happens when a starseed stops performing their mission and starts embodying it, and those are completely different things. Performance requires an audience. Embodiment requires only integrity. You do not need a crowd. You do not need a following or a platform or a circle of people who understand you. You do not need permission from the very world whose frequency you came here to help elevate. Your mission does not require anyone else's readiness. It only requires yours. And you are more ready than you know. The sixth phase is the recalibration of your relational field. Once you are rooted in sovereign presence, once you have cleared the distortion and integrated your galactic awareness and stopped shrinking yourself to survive, the relationships that arrive are completely different in texture, in depth, in the quality of recognition they carry. They do not feel like the relationships of your past. There is no performance in them. There is no carefully managed distance. There is no quiet sacrifice of self required just to remain in them. They are not built on need or familiarity or shared wounding. They are built on frequency resonance. They are the soul contracts that have been waiting in the wings, already written, already aligned, already carrying the codes of what you both came here to activate together, unable to land while you were still vibrating at the frequency of the old patterns. Imagine two tuning forks. One is being dampened by layers of accumulated interference. The other is clear and ringing at its true pitch. They cannot find each other's resonance while the first one is muffled. But the moment that interference clears, the moment the first fork begins to ring at its true frequency, they find each other instantly. That is what is happening in your relational field right now. The loneliness ends not because you went looking for connection, but because you became so fully yourself that the right connections could finally find you. You stopped being a translation and became the original language, and the beings who speak that language are already on their way. The seventh phase is the transmission of light. This is where you stop being a seeker and start being a signal. Where the posture of your soul shifts from reaching outward for something to anchor you to radiating outward from a center that is already anchored. Where your very presence begins to carry a frequency that activates others. Not because you are performing activation, not because you have mastered a technique, but because you have become so deeply, authentically, undefendedly yourself that your frequency does the work automatically. Your story, the isolation, the dissolution, the long and painful unbecoming, the phases you survive that you weren't sure you would survive, becomes the exact testimony that another starseed needs to hear to remember their own worth, their own mission, their own coded purpose. You don't broadcast it loudly. You don't perform it dramatically. You don't need to announce yourself. You simply are it. You walk into the world as living proof that the clearing was worth it, that the loneliness was not the end, that what felt like abandonment was actually initiation, and that quiet, embodied proof, the way you carry yourself now, the depth in your eyes, the steadiness of your presence in rooms that used to make you want to disappear. That is enough. That has always been enough. The world does not need more noise. It needs more signal, and you are becoming exactly that. Here is the ultimate transmission, the thing your star family has been waiting for this moment to say directly to you. Not through symbols or through encrypted dreams or through the half-remembered impressions of a meditation. Directly, clearly, without ambiguity or softening, because you are ready to hear it now in its full and unfiltered truth. You did not lose your people. You outgrew a frequency, and there is a profound difference. What was taken from you was not love. It was the illusion of belonging built on a version of you that no longer exists. A version that served its time, that kept you alive, that helped you navigate a world whose density would have crushed your original frequency if you had not adapted. But that version is finished now. It has completed its function, and grief for it is valid. You can grieve it. You can honor it. You can acknowledge every single moment of genuine tenderness and real laughter, and true connection that existed even within the constraints of that borrowed identity. But do not rebuild it. Do not go back to the frequency of who you had to be in order to retrieve the connections that were built there. Because what was cleared from your life was not your future. It was the interference pattern blocking your future from reaching you. Every silence that broke you open was an initiation. Every farewell that shattered your heart was a recalibration. Every midnight, when you sat with the weight of your own aloneness and wondered if something was irreparably wrong with the fabric of your life. In every single one of those moments, your higher self was standing right there with you. Not watching from a distance, not offering comfort from across some cosmic divide. Present, embodied in the very depth of your feeling, whispering through the ache itself. This is how we build what is real. This is how we activate what has always been true. This is the only way through. And you kept going, even when you didn't believe it would ever change, even when hope felt like a cruelty, even when the silence became so familiar, you stopped expecting it to end. You kept going. You are not too much. You are not too strange. You are not too sensitive or too intense or too deeply feeling for a world that never quite understood you. Those verdicts were handed down by a frequency that could not contain you, and they were never the truth. They were the limitations of the container speaking. You are precisely calibrated for this moment, for this shift, for this particular intersection of timelines where the planet itself is remembering what it is, reaching back through layers of collective amnesia toward its own original frequency, and where starseeds like you are the ones holding the vibrational template that makes that remembrance possible, not performing it, not teaching it as a concept, holding it, in your body, in your nervous system, in the quiet, unshakable knowing that radiates from you even when you are not speaking. The friendlessness was not your failure. The isolation was not your punishment. The emptiness was the clearing. The dissolution was the preparation. The silence was the sacred prerequisite for a signal so clear, so coherent, so unmistakably your own original frequency, that nothing in this world will be able to mistake it again. And you made it through. You are still here. You are still transmitting. And what comes next for you is not more of the same. What comes next is the life your original frequency was always meant to build. One relationship, one resonance, one activation at a time. Tonight, before you sleep, place your hand over your heart and say it aloud if you can. Not as affirmation, not as performance, but as declaration. As the signal finally choosing to broadcast without apology. Say it. I am not lost. I am arriving. I remember who I am. Beyond this dimension, beyond this lifetime, beyond the story of my struggle, I activate my mission now. Not when I am ready, not when I am supported, not when the world finally understands me. Now, in this body, in this moment, exactly as I am. Feel that land. Feel the way those words move through your chest differently than words usually move. That is not coincidence. That is recognition. That is the transmission receiving itself. And before you carry this into your evening, before you set this down and return to the ordinary textures of your day, remember that the 7 Sisters activation pack is available for you right now. 7 Pleiadian harmonic codes. 7 frequencies of activation encoded into a form you can return to again and again, each time going deeper, each time receiving another layer of what the codes carry. If what you just moved through in this transmission opens something in you, the ebook was designed to take that opening further. The link is in the comments below. It will not be there indefinitely. If you feel the pull, trust it. Before you scroll, take a moment to be part of what's forming here. Drop one intention in the comments, something real, then respond to someone else's with encouragement or energy. This isn't content, it's collective alignment. Energy multiplies when intention connects. If something in this message resonated, don't keep it to yourself. Someone in your orbit is waiting for this exact activation. Share it, and if you felt a soul nudge, subscribe. Stay in the flow. You're not just watching, you're expanding. This is your space, and we're just getting started.